on his way up to the podium right now.
Yay.
The Honorable former Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Alex!
And we're going to have a nice little conversation tonight. We're going to try to learn a little bit about what makes this man tick. We'll dive into his experience as sheriff, and then what makes him think that he's the right guy for the job to do that again.
I feel like we should have like acoustic guitars or something. I don't know.
maybe afterwards. And then at the end of the evening, we'll do a little Q&A as well. So if you guys have some questions you'd like to throw up, we'll get to those at the end. So we just had a nice little chat in the green room. We talked about his background. Born in Chicago, moved to Rochester, New York as a young man, and then eventually Puerto Rico, where you were raised. And I'm interested to know, at what point in your life did you first think about a career in law enforcement?
Well, I started with the military in 1983. That's when Reagan was in office. I was going to the University of Puerto Rico, but he thought that the Pell Grants were too costly, so they cut them in half. So I said, I think I need to get a job. So Air Force, they said aim high, so there I went. Signed up, went to Lackland Air Force Base, and I enlisted in Puerto Rico, which is as tropical as you can get, right? And they said, well, you get 3 stateside choices and 3 overseas choices. So I said, ooh, stateside or stateside? Let me see, what are the warmest states? Okay, Florida, Texas, California, in that order, from distance from Puerto Rico, and rolled the dice. I wound up in California. Here I am.
So we lucked out. We're happy that
roll the dice.
We're happy that happened for you. So some other ground that you and I just covered in there, but I think is interesting. When you first came to prominence in your first sheriff's race, you were really seen, first of all, Democrat. Second of all, really seen as a reformer who embodied progressive views to some degree. And that's really quite divergent from the way you're portrayed in the media today. So I would love to give you the opportunity, in your own words, to just tell us, do you feel like that was an accurate description of where you were when you came into the process? And where are you now?
Well, I can tell you this, that just the term progressive, the goalposts have moved significantly.
Sure.
Particularly since 2020. Because when I campaigned in 2018, our campaign motto was reform, rebuild, and restore. Well, the gist was that I campaigned on a bunch of things I was talking about. One of them was body-worn cameras and getting the department back to full staffing. And some of them were defined as, I guess, progressive in that view of 2017, 2018. But then the whole notion of what progressive meant changed radically in 2020 with George Floyd and the defunding craze. And no matter what, I remained as a cop the entire time. I had been on the department for 32 years, and I firmly believed in law and order and holding people accountable. I don't care who they were. And that upset the political establishment for some reason. They couldn't imagine that someone would hold them accountable to the rule of law, because they had the experience of over a century of sheriffs who looked the other way when was required to. And I'm going back to Biscaloo, Pitches, you name it, Block, Baca, McDonald. And I was the first sheriff in office that said, no, I think the rule applies to everyone the same. That was a novel concept that for me was that's just who I am. But for the establishment, they took a lot of offense to that.
So it's very obvious in talking to you that you feel like you've been portrayed unfairly in the media. And I'm just curious where you think that comes from. I think you just touched on it a little bit, that you just kind of feel that they were surprised that you could think for yourself, or that you would have ethics and those types of things. But the way that your your time in office was portrayed in the media, do you really think at the end of the day that was based entirely on politics?
I would say 100%. If you, in fact, do this as an exercise. Pull up any editorial from when I ran for re-election 22 and ask yourself one simple question. Does that have anything to do with public safety? And you realize, no, it talks about the hurt feelings of politicians. Literally, the entire thing. Oh my God, he was mean to us. He said things that he shouldn't have said. Oh, the reporter, that was challenged. Oh my God, But did they complain about having the department fully staffed finally? Did they complain about the fact that we had the personnel to suppress the riots, prevent LA from being overrun? Did they complain about the fact that I blocked the board from trying to fire 4,000 deputies? No. Did they complain about the fact that I balanced the budget? And this is a weird one. In fact, the budget is probably one of the funniest ones. I inherited a budget deficit of $101 million in 2018. That was my starting point. When I left office, it was 74 million in the black, surplus.
Yay!
A massive swing of 175 million. And now, under the current guy, now there's a budget deficit of 168 million. After he was given $500 million more in budget than I had. So do the math on that, you realize, wow, that is some wild back and forth. But less than a year on the job, the board held a special hearing to discuss the sheriff's inability to manage his budget. The LA Times echoed these talking points. But when they did that, we'd already fixed $40 million of the 101 million deficit. So we were actually on the right path. It took 4 years to get it completed, but you can see how the media manipulates it. And I kid you not, when I ran for re-election in 22, the LA Times said that I could not manage my budget with the surplus. But that's how they play the game. Reality means nothing. It's perception is everything. And they work hand in hand with the Board of Supervisors.
Well, so there's a lot to unpack there, but you kind of touched on the fact of COVID epidemic and everything that happened there. That was another big touchstone event for you. You were very steadfast in that you weren't going to fire deputies who refused to take the vaccine. And I believe there were also some times where you were either slow to enforce or decided not to enforce public safety measures that they felt, closures and things like that. I think with the benefit of hindsight, we can probably all agree that you were on the right side of those issues. I don't know if that's at all satisfying to you now, or if you just look back and think it's odd how all of that kind of seems to be swept under the rug.
Very good point. In fact, I can tell you this. When COVID hit, March 18th, 2020, I remember the date clearly. That's when they hit the panic button. Oh my God. A month prior, we already started preparing for it because we're already getting the words from the CDC, and we were running the nation's largest jail system. Remember that famous term, a congregate living facility? Well, we had the biggest one in the nation. So we're like, oh man, we are sitting ducks here. How do we figure this out? But we did the responsible thing. I called the presiding judge of the Superior Courts and I said, hey boss, we got trouble. We got 17,000 inmates, and if this thing hits the way it says it's gonna hit, we could easily have 1,000 or 2,000 dead inmates, plus 500 staff dead. We need to lower the size of the jail population so we have the ability to move populations within the jail system, isolate, segregate, provide medical, rapid response, do all these wonderful things. We did everything, and the end result with the inside the jail was twice as safe as living in Beverly Hills.
Yay!
That drove the ACLU nuts. They could not comprehend that because they were predicting doom and gloom. And then we adopted a policy for employees. Okay, I'm not going to force people to take the job because I think that's a medical decision that's best left to them. You decided. However, from the knowledge we had at the time, okay, get the jab or test every week. Either one's good for you, it's good for me, I'm good with that. Except it wasn't good for the Board of Supervisors. Oh my God, they wanted everyone, if you didn't, you're gonna get fired. But the policy that I enforced was the same one as President Biden at the time. It was the same one as Governor Newsom, exact same policy. And they never somehow met the scorn from the press and the board that I did for employing the same policy. So when they said, oh, we're gonna fire 4,000 if they don't take it, I said, no, you're not. They lost their mind again. And it turns out, wait a minute, the only one who can actually discipline employees of the Sheriff's Department is the sheriff, no one else. So it didn't go out the way they planned. And then fast forward 2 or 3 years, all those lawsuits about people who got fired over COVID, they're winning those cases because it was an unconstitutional effort. But here's the numbers I told you I was gonna give you. We had 10,000 vaccinated employees. We had about 6,000 and change unvaccinated. The positivity rate of the vaccinated was 3.4%. Keep that number in mind. The positivity rate of the unvaccinated was 3.9%. So for 0.5%, they were willing to destroy public safety just because they could, for no other reason. That's the number that CDC never released, Department of Public Health never released, and this obvious factual information that could make you decide, okay, does it work or not? Because everyone here is probably old enough to remember the polio vaccines. Once that vaccine became widespread, did anybody get polio after that? Nobody. There was no such thing as, like you said, breakthroughs and stuff like that. No, because that was actual vaccine. The COVID one, it was good for minimizing some of the symptoms or some of the effects of it, especially if you were compromised in one way, but to prevent the transmission or block it from you receiving it, nope, not at all.
And I definitely think that's the one where, with the benefit of hindsight, pretty hard to argue the other side of the issue. I'd like to move on now to another thing that was a little bit of a lightning rod during your time, and in total fairness, not just during your time in the Sheriff's Department, I think even still a little bit today, and even before you got in there, deputy gangs. And so for somebody who's just a member of the public, I don't think we have any concept of is this a real thing? Is this a made up narrative? Is it something in between? So as somebody who sat in the chief seat, I would love your take on, is it something we need to worry about? Is it a total fiction, or is it something in between?
Awesome question. I'll tell you this. This is the narrative that the far, far left was pushing from 22, and then as soon as Luna took over, it disappeared. The Oversight Commission described it as an existential crisis. They said that 1 out of every 6 deputies was a gang member. So if you do the math, that's like 1,500 gang members, right? Oh, they said that with a straight face.
I know.
And one would-be activist claiming to be a journalist said, oh, well, I know they're gang members because they have matching tattoos. Wow. I'm pretty sure SEAL Team 6 has matching tattoos as well. I think the Rams offensive line has their own tattoo. There's an entire nursing staff in the ER in Orange County Hospital that got matching tattoos. None of them are gang members. And none are deputies either. And the thing is, paramilitary organizations, especially very, very large ones, have unique tattoos, unit symbols or logos that identify the smaller unit within the bigger unit. That is unit pride, that is camaraderie, especially a position like being a deputy. The adversity you face, life and death struggles that you face, that is something as a unifying symbol, a source of pride that, hey, I worked that place and I survived. You get yourself a tattoo, you don't get yourself a tattoo, you still identify with that group of people. I worked at East LA for 7 years. I worked with people that had tattoos, and they were tattoos from the 80s. My time there was in the 90s. They had a different tattoo. After 2000, they had a different tattoo, like the 4th generation of tattoos. And the Oversight Commission still thinks that they're all gang members, going back 50 years. But it was never a crisis for some weird reason until I took office. Then it became a crisis. As soon as I left office, the crisis magically went poof. Where to go? So some people are claiming that I am a leader of the bandidos. I'm a tattooed gang member. That is, people were duped. And you have to admire how successful the campaign was. Because the Oversight Commission did special hearings on deputy gangs, and they tied the hearings to the election cycle in 2022 for the primary and the runoff. All these things that were done to give the illusion or the impression that I'm hiding something. And even in comments today, I see on an article about my run or anything, they'll put, yeah, but he covered up for the deputy gangs. I'm like, oh my God, you know what? And I told everyone, I told the board of supervisors, tell everyone, you think there's a deputy gang member, please say who that person is. I'll be more than happy to fire him. Not one person ever stepped up and said that person is a gang member. You know why? Real easy. Because people, as a public figure, people can talk all the shit they want about me. I can't sue for defamation because the threshold for public figure is ridiculously too high. However, if I tell Don Q deputy that he's a gang member, now I open myself up for defamation. That's why they never said it. So it was good to say as a group, oh, they're all gang members. They're all bandidos, knowing that they couldn't attach a name to any one. So they just played a very sophisticated game with your tax dollar. All those special hearings, all that stuff was designed to give the impression that it's this incredible thing. The Board of Supervisors hired Rand Corporation to do a famous study about subgroups. And they were gonna finally decide, whether they exist or not. They deliberately had the information that said that no, they don't exist, and actually tattoos are kind of getting out of favor. They're less popular today than they were back in the 80s and 90s, but they couldn't say that. So what you got, if you read the Rand Corporation result, is literally a math equation. You got to figure it out for yourself what it means. Because they wanted to conceal it by saying, oh, people are still getting tattoos. In fact, the number is increasing. And in reality, the number is decreasing. They just couldn't admit it because that would not satisfy the narrative. So they were paid about $2 million of your tax dollar to spread the fake story of deputy gangs.
So it's fascinating getting all your side of these stories where we've heard kind of the other side of the story on the media every night when you watch the evening news. My question that I just thought of while you were answering that is, and maybe you did, but did you do your best at the time in real time to put out your side of the story, just exactly what you just told us right now? Were you trying to disseminate that information at the time? And if so, why don't you think it was successful?
Let's put it this way. I held press conferences. I put all the information out in front of the cameras. I testified under oath in front of the Oversight Commission in their fake trial, special hearing, we're going to subpoena the sheriff. Oh my God, he's resisting oversight. All these nonsense. Gave him all the information. It doesn't matter if people are not willing to listen. And this is something I'll tell you about the media. And this is kind of scary because I had a press conference in 22, it was during the election time. And I actually had a press conference. I shared the podium with Rob Bonta, who was the AG at the time. And there was a reporter in the crowd from KFI, God bless him. He asked Rob Bonta a hard question about conflict of interest. It was about the Sheila Kuehl case, peace over violence, that whole search warrant thing we did. And apparently Rob Bonta and his wife, Mia Bonta, were taking campaign contributions from the very people who were suspects in the peace over violence investigation. And he jammed him on that. And he did his tap dance, and there was a bank of cameras because the press conference was about mail theft. there was an organized gang of actually gangsters. They were stealing mail and stealing checks from Graham and all that, whitewashing them, doing that. It was like about $5 million worth of theft. It was a big organized effort. So we participated. We helped out the AG's office, and the reporter just, all the cameras are rolling, and he laid them out. And this guy did the tap dance of the century. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, this is all, everyone heard this. You cannot hide this. I go to the 6 o'clock news, crickets.
Yeah.
Some point along the line, all of the media decided that that did not happen. Now this is very important, because when you start realizing about what you think you know and what actually happened is controlled centrally, and the local media is either told or they are part of the decision of what is given or not. And that was, I thought, from my perspective, I'm standing right next to the guy who's tap dancing like crazy and never ever appeared. The only place that it came out was that reporter's own thing on KFI, where he gave his news story, and it was buried, never happened. And that is the power of the media right now. So now, in 2026, there's a campaign for sheriff, right? There's 8 candidates. You would never know it. It's totally, there's like a wall of silence where it is not discussed whatsoever. It's just really bizarre.
Very interesting stuff. So shifting gears a little bit, this is probably a less important question, but something that at the time made actually international news, and it happened right here in the South Bay, was when Tiger Eldrick Woods decided to drive his car off the road up here in Rolling Hills Estates. I'm very familiar with that road. I used to own a surf shop right on the top of the hill there, and I would take that road every day. Very steep hill. But you were criticized widely at that time for exonerating him, in some people's minds, that you exonerated him too quickly. Again, probably much less important than a lot of other stuff we're talking about, but I'd love to just get your view on that moment.
Well, that was one of those moments where you just kind of shake your head and go, oh my God. I had 3 times when I was sheriff that I had the bank of cameras that was like in the dozens. It was the Saugus High School shooting when I was pretty new on the job. Mm-hmm. It was a Kobe Bryant crash, and then it was Tiger Woods. And the Tiger Woods one, I had the bank of like 16 or 20 cameras. I started counting them. You realize you count the number of cameras and you know how newsworthy the situation is. I mean, CNN trucked outside with a satellite dish. The weird thing was, I guess it's not weird, it's actually positive. That case was handled by the book with department training. The deputy who did the investigation was a first on scene. He was traffic trained. He talked to Tiger Woods. He made an initial assessment of his level of sobriety. He realized he had a life-threatening injury, compound fracture. So there was not going to be any, field sobriety test. I mean, this guy is in major pain, but he was lucid. He understood everything, and the fact that he was buckled in is the only reason he survived that crash. And the car that he flipped over was a Genesis. It's got a really, really good shell, because that thing survived hell, and the interior of the cabin stayed intact the whole time. It flipped over like 3 times, plowed over a tree, did all kinds of stuff. So when we went to the scene, and this is Lomita Station, all the cameras are out there, and I'm thinking, okay, let me get the information. I have my Sheriff's Information Bureau. Okay, give me the basics about what happened, get the facts. So I'm going to address the media about what happened that day. But I did something that people didn't expect, neither did the deputy. Because a young kid, I actually grabbed him after I just gave the basics about what we did in the press, and people were going to have questions. So you know what? Let's have the deputy that actually did the investigation and was the first on scene. He can give you his his information. So we literally yanked him and put him right in front of the bank of cameras. I did not discuss with him what to say, how to say anything. We just said, you were there, okay, tell them what you saw and what you did. God bless him, he knocked it out of the park.
Yay.
He left no doubt about what his decision making was, and I was so proud of him because he really did his job. I mean, he's like, heck, if Lord willing, we get back, he's going to Sheriff's Information Bureau, wherever he's at. He was that good. And the press was happy, they got all their information. But what they tried to spin was that somehow, well, Tiger Woods, how do you know he didn't have drugs in his system? Why didn't they take a sample at the hospital? Well, one, as soon as the paramedics got on scene, they start pumping him with stuff, obviously because he's in major pain. So he's already got morphine in there. Lord knows what else they put to stabilize him. It's out of the question. There's no point to do any drug test or anything. We weren't going to do that. And the fact is, there was no other party involved. It was just property damage alone. Okay, if there was another party was involved and there was a deceased party or another injured party, a second vehicle, okay, well then we assess that, But in this case, no, it was just him, and he, literally his leg was just hanging, mid-shin.
Ouch.
And the bone was sticking out. And the doctors did miracles patching him back together. But this is how screwy the media is and the haters. Because they claim that somehow it gave him special treatment. No. That kid made the decision on his own with his training. It made the right decision, made the right analysis, applied the law, and said, no, there's nothing to do here. This is a medical issue. And his insurance probably had to pay for the damage. I think a road sign or something got clipped or something. That's about it. But that's an insurance thing. But there's no criminal conduct involved. Had we gone and tried to rake him through the coals, then I would have been accused of being racist. Because I'm getting the black man. Either way you can't win. So one way or the other, I was always going to be wrong in this situation. But we did the right thing. The deputy did the right thing. He represented the department so well. And you know what? Tiger Woods, fortunately, was able to recover. We had his golf clubs in the Wash Commander's office with a little tiger thing on the top.
Aww.
And it's one of those things you just got to shake your head and go, people are just so shameless.
Yeah.
Very cool. So a couple other questions here. I think I'd love to know, with the benefit of hindsight now, what are you most proud of for your time while you were in the sheriff's office? And then also, if you had a chance to do one thing over again or one thing differently, what would that be?
Well, what I'm most proud of is that during my time in office, we were able to put the department back together. We got it fully staffed by April of 2020, and that's when the board imposed the hiring freeze, the defunding craze, and all that stuff happened. We were able to get the department back together. But more important than just getting the department fully staffed and back together, we got them all rowing in the same direction. We had the morale sky high. People were excited to be deputies. The line of people that wanted to be deputies would wrap around the building in Monterey Park every time we had the written test. We did not have to, do marketing or anything. No, people wanted to be deputy sheriff. Our reputation finally matched what we should be in our potential. And we led the way in 2020 during the Summer of Love and the riots. And we finally got it right. Because in 1992, I was a young deputy in patrol in those riots. We got it all wrong. 58 people died, billions of dollars in damage, and there's places today that are empty lots in South LA because our failure to protect people. So in 2020, now it's my turn to be in the hot seat. I said, let's do things different. If we need to kick ass, take names, and that's exactly what we did, and it worked. No one died, no serious injuries. We minimized the damage, and the only places that were harmed, Fairfax District, Santa Monica, and Long Beach. And what do all three share in common? Look at the composition of the city councils of those three areas, and that tells you why there was damage. The other 3,115 square miles of county jurisdiction, that's the sheriff's departments, nothing. That fact was never ever admitted by the media, by the board of supervisors, by anybody. But the Antifa crowd and the crooks knew. That's why they didn't bother rioting in our areas. So I was proud of that. I was proud because of the hard work that the men and women of the department did, and it worked. Regret or thing that I would do, I think that was your second question. When I took office, I had one big mistaken assumption that other people shared my level of integrity or honesty, especially elected officials. I thought they were there to advance the public's interest. Not even close. It's a collection of people that are power hungry, and all they want to do is consolidate power and get more power. And they could care less about what they do, the impact it is on the community at large. Community at large is just, you're flying blind, deaf, and dumb because you have no idea what people are doing behind closed doors against their best interests. And that, I made decisions that, had I known that at the start, I would have made different decisions. Probably not the same decision, but I would have taken a different path to get to him. I'll give one prime example. I hired a deputy back named Karen Mendoyan. It was all the rage my first year in the job. Oh my God, how dare he? He's a stalker, domestic violence, this and that, not. No, actually what he was is a person who was never arrested, tried, or convicted of anything. Pretty scandalous, right? And it brought him back to be one of 8,200 deputies. More scandal, right? I didn't bring him back to be the undersheriff, like certain supervisor has their son as chief of staff, right? Didn't do that. But what I did is I actually uncovered misconduct from the previous sheriff's administration. And the board was willing to pay millions of dollars to bury that and just cast me as somehow some evil person. Actually, I was trying to right a wrong. But now I know how to right those wrongs where I don't have to do anything to be on the defense. For example, if someone who was screwed over by the Luna administration, we're going to give them all the information so they can go out and challenge the county, and it puts the county on the defense. And all we're going to do is going to testify very truthfully and very happily about what the evil things that happen. See, we don't participate in misconduct or covering up misconduct, and that's why the establishment is really, really afraid of me, because in their minds, having someone do the right thing is the most dangerous thing possible. You look at the fraud going on at the state, the county, and the city level, billions of dollars missing. You know how many people need to go to jail? I mean, it's a lot of people. And they don't want to begin to start thinking of the possibility that someone's going to start asking the questions. Bill Asaley, God bless him, he's doing everything he can, but he's one man in a small show. So when he gets to what he can, it'd be great, but I know his bandwidth is not big enough to adjust the size or, grasp the size of the scandal. We can do that. We can do that working together with prosecutors at the DA's office, the AG's office, when we get an honest one in there, at the federal level. And once people start going to jail, you're going to see people starting to sing like a canary because they don't want to go to jail either. Remember the first two, he who squeals gets the deal. And a lot of that's going to be happening in the next few years. I see it. So I've learned the hard way how to do things in a different order. Same result, but why defend myself? Let them defend themselves. And we're just going to facilitate the process.
Okay, I'm just going to have a couple more questions here for Sheriff Villanueva, and then I'd like to open it up to you guys to ask some questions and have a little Q&A if you feel so emboldened. But one question we talked about a little bit before we came out here, but I'd love to get your take on it, is what advice would you give for a future sheriff or future sheriffs?
Number one advice is, and I'll borrow the Lou Holtz, rules to live by. Do what's right. And we were sued so many times in my 4 years on the job. There was an active campaign by insiders trying to sabotage my administration, the board of supervisors, all their political appointees. They were recruiting people to sue the department. And almost all those cases they lost. Literally all of them. In fact, the ones that were recruited, they did lose all of the cases. And the one reason why they kept losing, because they do all these big discoveries and subpoenas and this and that. And so, you know, subpoena whatever you want, you're still not going to find anything, because we had a simple rule. We met every day, our top five, which is the sheriff, under sheriff, and the 3 assistant sheriffs, and my staff. Identify what the problem is, okay? 2, what's the right thing to do? 3, how do we make that happen? See that? It wasn't how do we hide something or how do we avoid, no, it was what's the right thing? How do we make it happen? That was it. So if they want to discover something, well, they're going to find a paper trail that leads to nowhere, because that was always our take on everything, and it worked. So that's loopholes rule number 1, do what's right. Number 2, do your best. Are you committed to the goals of the organization to success? And the rule number 3, the golden rule, treat others the way you expect to be treated. You follow those 3 simple rules, and remember, you're a public servant. This is servant leadership. You're there to serve others, not to serve yourself. Not to aggrandize yourself, no, to serve other people. When you understand that, everything changes. The world is seen in a different light, and we did that. We had a wonderful event my first year, 2019. They used to have an event, it was called the Sheriff's Luncheon. And that was allegedly where all the brass would go to kiss the ring, you know. And this were only the brass of each station and each unit. So the captain would go and the lieutenants, maybe the operations staff. But the line swine would never go to these things. They wouldn't be caught dead in it because of their reputation. So they get maybe 200 cats show up at this sheriff's luncheon once a year. And we say, you know what, we're going to do the exact opposite. This is going to be employee appreciation luncheon. We had 800 RSVPs. We had 1,200 people show up. We had Lascaris from Whittier catered it at the industry at the Pacific Palms. 6 stations, and this place was packed. It was almost standing room only. But what we did that made it very different, now already we're obviously different from the Sheriff's Luncheon, is it was the Employees Day, and I had the captains serving the food. I had the captains, the commanders, the chiefs bussing the tables. And my undersheriff, God bless him, Tim Murakami, he was the very first one that stood up, it's time to bus, and he started bussing tables. And when you see him, God bless him, this guy, 43 years on the department, parents were at interred in, what was the place up north, the Japanese internment camp? Manzanita, there you go. Yeah, I mean, and this guy, God bless him, and he starts busting tables, and all the other ones with brass on their collars decided, maybe I should too. But the reaction of the employees, it was priceless. I had some in tears saying, you know what, my entire career, I've never seen this, thank you. And that's servant leadership, because in the Army, you know, I was in the Army National Guard for a minute. The lowest ranking soldier is always the first one to eat every meal. And the company commander is the last person. And that's the attitude needs to be. But the history of the department prior was always the brass is first at everything. And the line swine, well, they get what's left. No. No, they always go first.
Thank you for that. And keep that. And does anybody have some questions for the sheriff?
I just want to say how I'm so impressed that you came out here. I have every intention to vote for you, but I'm now very engaged to let others know to do the same.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. We got 6 days left, so now we got to just chase down people to turn in. Those ballots sitting on your kitchen countertop are not going to work. They need to get in if it's too late to put them in the mail at this point.
I know.
Actually
no.
take the ballot and deliver it to the voting center and put it in the box yourself. Don't use the machines to vote, electronic machines.
Yeah.
Use a paper ballot, turn it in, let's leave a paper trail.
Alex, can I get you to talk about where the staffing levels are at right now? And also, can you talk about during the 2020 riots and what happened with Long Beach?
Oh boy.
That's why I brought it up.
Good point. The good thing about having a fully staffed sheriff's department, which we had in 2020, is that when bad things happen, you have all the people you need to actually handle business. Remember, the riots happened at the same time as the pandemic. In the pandemic, I was losing 1,000 deputies a day were in quarantine. That's like 1 out of every 9 sworn was not available in quarantine. But the good thing was our court services division, which is about 1,200 strong, all the courts were closed. That freed up, suspiciously, about 1,200 deputies. So I had some replacement to deal with that. And then along came the riots. And this is where you lead from the front, you don't lead from the rear, like certain people think you do. We have a Department Operations Center. If you've been by the Hall of Justice, you know that old building with the marble columns? The Department Operations Center is in the basement. It has huge screens. Great place to see the Super Bowl, by the way, if you ever have a chance. But it started, I want to say it was May 30th, May 29th, May 30th. One started, then another one started, and we knew it was happening already. So they told me, okay, boss, we got to go downstairs. Let's get a briefing on everything that's happened in the county. And they gave me the briefing of a lifetime. They said, okay, you got 11 riots going on at the same time, all over the county. And we had 2 mobile field forces that were equipped to the T with all the special gear. 2. We had 2, actually they're called Sheriff's Response Teams, SRT teams. We had 3 mobile field forces that were combined with all these smaller agencies, and they get together their personnel, like the South Bay will have one, and the West Side will have one, on the East Side they have another one. So we had 3 of those, that's 5, but I got 11 riots. So I said, well, you know what, first thing we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to order up the National Guard, because these are more things happening than we have the personnel, and I'm thinking of replacing people and all that. So we ordered up 500. And believe it or not, the mayor of LA kidnapped the first 500 guardsmen and diverted them to Bel Air to basically to provide comfort to the rich and shameless. And I asked the state, hey, where's my 500 guardsmen? And they said, oh, we sent them to Bel Air. And I lost my mind, right? Because the sheriff is in charge of mutual aid for the LA County and Orange County. People are not aware of this, but the LA County, that's your official title. The Board of Supervisors stripped the sheriff from being the director of emergency management just for political, because they could, bullies. Didn't impact me in any way because this is a riot, this is a law enforcement function, so everyone else pretty much get out of the way. We got this. And so I called them and they apologized. Oh, sorry, we'll send you another 500. Okay. But to their credit, the very next day, the 3-star guy in charge of the California Office of Emergency Services was in our Department Operations Center apologizing in person. He said that'll never happen again. And because there's a very strict guidelines on how, basically, chain of events and chain of command and everything, it doesn't involve the mayor of LA in any way, shape, or form. It's the sheriff, it's the chiefs of police, the fire entities, and all that. So, got an extra 500, sent everybody out there, handled everything. We went to, first was Beverly Hills, because instead of 1992 where they burned down South LA, the Antifa crowd said, we're gonna burn down the wealthy neighborhoods where it hurts. So they started with, they wanted to sack Rodeo Drive. So our sheriff's response team went there, played footsie with Antifa till Antifa gave up. Said that's a really bad idea. And they basically left screaming and running. It was pretty funny to see. So Beverly Hills was very appreciative. Then we got the chief of police called me, LAPD chief, Michael Moore, said, hey, could you help us in Fairfax? For the LAPD chief to call the sheriff that they need help on something of this nature is never happened before in the history of the county. So this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, all right, we'll be there. And Bill Malusian, remember him he's now Fox National, he was KTTV. He was with the LAPD units, their D platoon, I think on Fairfax, I can't remember what street they were at. And they were getting rocks and bottles from Antifa. We showed up, they threw, I think a bottle broke at the feet of the deputies. And all you heard was with the pepper balls, sting balls, you name it, and all you saw was elbows and assholes screaming, running the other way. They caught this on TV live. It was funnier than shit. And at that point, people realized, okay, they're not playing, let's not do here. So Santa Monica burned to the ground the promenade because the chief of police said it's just property damage. They literally will themselves and destroy it. To this day, the promenade has never been done. We heard the Long Beach started, so we went to Santa Monica to help out Santa Monica, and then we realized that they're just wasting our time. We said, you know what, you want to burn your own city and not do anything? We're not going to play part with that. We're going to go to Long Beach where we can actually intervene. We went to 7th and Ocean, met with Long Beach PD, and there was a sergeant and a handful of officers from Long Beach. And I asked him, hey, where's your chief? And mind you, I'm decked out, ready to go to the dance, right? I got my helmet on, I got my vest and all my gear and all my security team, everyone's all suited up for the party. And the sergeant, God bless him, he said, well, we haven't heard from him, but I got an email from him. And I'm thinking, what? Where is he? I said, oh, well. So follow us. So they joined with us, and we went to, I think, 7th and Ocean. There was a CVS that was being looted at the time. We showed up, everybody scattered, running. We chased down looters. I actually did arrest 2 looters. I hadn't broken out my handcuffs since probably 2000. I had to cycle them through a few times to make sure they still worked. We handcuffed him, my security team, like, oh my God, the sheriff is gonna die. I said, no, we're all right. I couldn't really run. I had to more hobble along because my knee was all jacked up. But what we did though is we set an example. It was the most important thing. Later on, I learned that Luna was hiding in the basement of the Long Beach Fire Department the entire time.
That's our current sheriff.
And from that, he earned the label Bunker Bob. And it stuck because when the fires happened last year, he was nowhere to be found again.
Yeah.
Fire started on a Monday. It took him till Thursday to show up at a command post in Malibu. 4 days, day 4. Turns out he was hiding in a hotel in Carlsbad. Don't know if it was in the basement or not, but we know he was hiding. And yeah, his safe space. And that's how he earned the nickname Bunker Bob. And it's just, you can't lead from the rear, folks. You gotta show your troops that you care, and you're gonna go through whatever they go through. You're gonna go through it with them. And that is so important, just a simple leadership rule to live by. Show up, show you care, and walk a mile in their shoes.
Any other questions?
Sheriff, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. I just first want to start out. I asked one of my college buddies, Chris and I went to the same school, and he's a former commander, LAPD, and he says Villanueva is a good dude. I met him a while ago. He doesn't play politics and defends the Lasso and his deputies. My buddies at Lasso really like him and want him to be sheriff again. So.
Yay.
Oh,
Yay.
that's so nice of him. Please give him my regards.
Yeah.
When you see him.
Question for you: what do you think your kind of if you're elected again? What are your top kind of 3 measurable outcomes you'd like to prioritize in your next term, and how would you change operationally the organization to accomplish those?
Well, one is we have to get the department back to full staffing. In fact, we didn't quite cover that.
Thank you.
The department now, it was at 10,000. Now it's down to about 7,800 or so. It is a shadow of its former self. So the first operational goal is to get the workforce back to 10,000. And in 2018, when I started, the workforce was at 9,200. So it was 800 whole. We got it back by April of 2020, about a year and a half it took us. But now, as you can see, the hole is 3 times as big. So it's gonna take us longer. But now we have the Olympics, nipping it at our heels. So my first goal is to hire like crazy. And I'm gonna have to spend, Lord willing, if we're back in office, we're gonna spend probably the first 6 months doing nothing but recruiting. That means we're gonna knock on every college door, every military post, and telling everyone, hey, come join us. Remember the movie Tombstone?
Yeah.
Remember it towards the end when they said that one last ride, they're gonna get rid of the cowboys? We're gonna be doing that. We're gonna do one last ride and get this department back to full staffing and reset the culture of the organization to what historically has been an agency that is proactive, community-led, community by the community, and doesn't take no for an answer. I mean, the things that deputies do, the unsung heroes out there, they do amazing things with so little support. The Sheriff's Department is the most understaffed agency in the entire nation. And number 2 is not even close to where we're at. But in spite of all that, deputies do incredible things, and they're courageous, and their proactivity alone, the criminal community fears deputy sheriffs motivated. We're in tan and green because they know they'll do the unthinkable. They'll actually, turn over rocks to see what's underneath them. They'll find a car cruising through a neighborhood at 2 a.m. with a bunch of, kids with shaved heads in it, and shovels and stuff, and hey, what's up, guys? And pull them over. The things that keep people safe, they're gonna do it. So bringing the department back to full staffing, breathing life back into the organization is so important because we have to repopulate Homicide Bureau, Operation Save Streets, our SWAT team, Aero Bureau, all the different specialized units that are falling apart because there's no one left to. The last people that are going to be working are going to be your patrol deputies and your custody deputies, and they're running short. So really there's nowhere to put anyone. So we got to get people in the front door so we can populate the rest. That's priority number 1. Priority number 2, and this is going to be a hard one, is we have to establish fiscal independence of the Sheriff's Department from the whims of the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah.
The state constitution and case law says that the sheriff is responsible for the budget. But what the Board of Supervisors has done over decades is they put their fingers in everything the department does, and they try to manipulate the budget to achieve their political goals. And that's actually all illegal. Because if the Sheriff's Department budget is $4 billion, literally the role of the supervisor stops once they cut the check for $4 billion. It's the sheriff's job to spend it responsibly according to whatever the plans are. Board has to supervise and make sure that happens. And trust me, I don't want to spend $4 billion without somebody looking over my shoulder. That's a lot of money. The $30 million was the price tag for the new computer-aided dispatch. They spent $40 million on a jail closure implementation team. To close a jail, they know they can't close. They dumped $40 million on that. But we leave the computer-aided dispatch on life support. See, those are the financial decisions that are just political vandalism, I guess is the best way to describe it, that harms public safety.